North Canterbury's community radio station, Compass FM. Joining with me in the studio at the moment is Wim Bevers from the Balcairn Hall. Good morning, Wim. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm very well. A bit of a fresh nose, but yeah, I'm all right. Yeah.
She's a wee bit chilly outside, all right. Wim, you've been around New Zealand for, I don't know, about 35, 40 odd years, is it?
Yes, since 1983.
83. Yeah. So that's your 40th anniversary of being in New Zealand?
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic. What brought you here, apart from a plane?
Oh, well, mainly adventure. I thought, I just needed a break. I was born in a certain area and went to that school and went to work there. Yeah. And I went to that church and I thought, now the circle is nearly full. I've got to find another one.
And you went halfway round the world, literally halfway around the world, and you landed here in New Zealand. How long have you been around Balcairn district in North Canterbury?
In Balcairn, about 8 years and 20 years in Waimeti.
Okay, all right. So you are definitely a Cantabrian. When the thing is at Balcairn, what you become involved in the hall, and more on that in just a moment. But you're also a wee bit of a historian for the area of Balcairn itself. Can you explain a wee bit about Balcairn?
Yeah, I think I read this at the Archives, which is a marvellous little museum opposite the Balcairn Hall. I read there in one of their papers, Balcairn was supposed to be a centre of the district, but it did not happen. But if you look at the Balcairn Hall, yes, you can see what they were trying to do, because there's 8 roads coming together, plus a railway.
Plus a row, of course.
Yeah.
So there was basically that's where all the roads led to, Balcairn.
Yes.
Now, if you're not too sure where Balcairn is in North Canterbury, if you're just listening in and you're not too sure, it's north of Rangiora, slightly west of Amberley. It's near Sefton, is that right?
Yes.
So it's on the inland route between Rangiora and Amberley. That's where you find Balcairn and the Balcairn Hall. So that's I didn't know that. So that was supposed to be a North Canterbury hub, and it didn't actually happen.
Yeah, we're still working on getting Rangiora part of Balcairn, but don't know when it will happen.
The southern suburb of Balcairn is Rangiora. Tell us a wee bit about the history of the hall, and you became involved in the hall about 8 years or so ago. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you've been involved with this pretty much every single year since then.
Yes, I have.
Excellent. So you are the man to ask about the history of the Balcairn Hall. So go for your life. Rip into it.
Well, the Balcairn Hall was built in 1926. The land was donated by a Mr. Smith. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have money to build a hall. So there were 2 ladies who organized a big garden party. And that raised half the money, plus the money for a piano.
Oh, there you go.
And quite funny, that piano I wrecked that last year to keep the timber and the steel separated to drop off at the recycling.
Oh, really? So the piano sort of left last year?
Yes, it has been used very, very much over the years.
Almost 100 years?
Yes. But it fell apart, and then we couldn't save it anymore. The board was cracked and all that.
That's what happens to 100-year-old things. Sometimes they do fall apart.
I know. But that garden party that actually raised half the money, and it was a bumper party, they call it in the paper. So the other half was raised by bonds, and people have been paid back those bonds. That happened in no time.
Yeah,
and it was built. The hall was built by the Hales brothers, and in the paper it says, the paper of 1926. Yeah, it was built out of the best timber. They built it as a first-class building, and they did an excellent job. And it was said at the opening that it would supply the needs for the district for some years, and we're still using it.
And it's still being used for the same sort of purpose as well. Coming up in 1926, we're coming up almost 100 years that the Balcairn Hall has been for community.
Yes, we're working on that. It's providing the community with an outlet where we can do things. And although we often have to concentrate on the budget, we still look at very much at the social aspect. And for me personal, it's a great pleasure to see a concert and everybody goes away smiling and shaking hands and people are supporting us.
It's social. It's community. It is the Balcairn Hall. Now it's still big, obviously being used. Recently, we've actually promoted a couple of events that come up recently. You've had a couple of sellouts too.
It is not. It's not just the hall. It's a community thing. And you need us, we need you, isn't it? That's the way it is.
Yeah.
We just last Saturday had a marvelous concert. It was sold out, Jackie Clark, and we had more than 100 people in there, and it was marvelous. The people come from everywhere.
Yeah.
We got customers on our mailing list.
Yeah.
From Darfield.
Yep.
The people come from Darfield. We've got one lady on our committee. She's from Waikuku. People are from Emberley. They come from Marshland, Sefton, Springston, Christchurch. Sometimes Dunedin to come to our concerts. They love the taste of an old rural wooden hall. And our acoustics are very, very, very good.
That's actually a really good point too. If it was made to the highest standards back in 1926, that'd still be pretty good. And you'll have Totra timber in there. You'd have Matai. You'd have all sorts of native timbers in the Balcairn Hall that you've been looking after for a wee while.
Yes, the timber is unbelievable. That's what the artists say too. You know, when they have the right position, and it was built with a little stage, and that was used in the early days, a piano, a saxophone, and a violin, and off it went.
And that place cooked, absolutely going off as well. And the hall is available for hire now too, isn't it? Right to this day. And if you're looking for a place that can handle up to 120 people seated or 150 standing, that there is for North Canterbury. That's a good little size hall to be used.
Oh yes, and even when we have 50 people, that's quite often our break point, you know.
Yep.
It's still worth doing, because the smiles, you can't put any price on that.
Absolutely.
And also, we always, during our concerts, during the break, we put on a nice supper.
You always do too. That's part of your promotion stuff.
But at the moment, it's used for dance classes a few days a week. We have nowadays a few open mic meetings, very well attended. And if you want to hear a good singer, just come to our open mic. We have civic meetings, meet the candidate, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And always well attended, and the people at the Hununui District Council told me that that meeting is usually the best meeting for the whole election procedure.
Yep.
We get concerts in conjunction with Arts on Tour. Mm-hmm. They organize a certain group or an artist, and they organize a tour for 25 performances, and they come to Balcairn. It's subsidized, but that is a little bit standing on loose screws at the moment, because subsidies, like everywhere, you must feel that too, Terry.
Yes, we do.
It's getting harder and harder.
Yeah. So as a community, what can we do to actually help out? By hiring the hall, by going along to the various performances?
Well, that's exactly what it is. And we very, very much appreciate Compass FM in supporting us always by announcing that things are coming up. It will help. Every little bit helps.
Yes.
So we're also, I was saying what sort of things we have on. We had a children show.
There was a puppet show. That's right.
And that was sold out.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Total new aspect for the hall. Kids were sitting on cushions, pillows, on the floor, we had 60 kids and probably 50 mainly grandparents.
Yep.
Because mum and dad got to go to work, and that's what happens.
Yep.
Another item we had there a while ago was the New Zealand String Quartet.
Yes.
And that was unbelievable. It's for a certain audience,
yes.
of course.
Yeah.
And we noticed that whatever we organize, we still get different audiences all the time.
Yeah.
There's a core of people, but the character of the act determines the audience.
Absolutely.
How did I say that?
Yeah. Well, look, seriously, if people want to get in contact with the Balcairn Hall, you've got a Facebook page, haven't you?
Yes, yeah.
That's primarily the main point of contact. The Balcairn, Balcairn Hall on Facebook. You'll be able to get in contact with the community members and other bits and pieces. If you've got an event coming up very, very soon, or in the next 2 or 3 months, then please, if you can, use the Balcairn Hall in North Canterbury. Please do so. A final thing from you, Wim?
Well, let me finish off with a quote of Mr. Forbes, who opened the hall in 1926. And I think it's still, a lot of that is still as true as Mr. Forbes said that the public hall was very necessary in all country districts, and it was usually the center of all social activity and was the means of preventing the young people from growing tired of the life in the country and seeking fresh interests in the town.
98 years ago he wrote that, and it's still relevant today, really, isn't it?
It is.
Absolutely. Brilliant stuff. Wim Bevers from the Balcairn Hall, thanks for coming into Compass FM, and we'll keep in contact with you as well.
It's a pleasure.
Compass FM.